Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the next part of the first day session. We are now about to start our scholars' presentations. And before we start, I would like to invite Dr. V. Premalata, who would be the session chair for today's presentations. And before we start, I would like to give a brief introduction about her. Welcome, Dr. Premalata, ma'am. It's a privilege to introduce Dr. Premalata as the session chair for this conference. A distinguished scholar and musician, she holds postgraduate and doctoral degrees in music with specialization in vocal and veena. Guided by Professor N. Ramanathan, she has devoted nearly 3 decades to the study of music manuscripts, contributing significantly to the preservation and interpretation of textual traditions in Indian music. She has completed research projects with the Sangeet Natak Academy and the University Grants Commission, authored important scholarly works, and contributed extensively to research and e-content. She has served the academic community in multiple capacities at the University of Madras, Sri Venkateswara University, and is presently serving as professor and head Department of Music at the Central University of Tamil Nadu, Thiruvarur. She is a recipient of the Musicologist Award from the Madras Music Academy and a Woman Achiever honor from All India Radio. With her deep scholarship, extensive experience, and commitment to the field, Dr. Premalata brings academic rigor and insightful perspectives to this session. Welcome, Dr. Premalata. We are honored to have you as a session chair for this first session of this international conference.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I am so delighted to see such a huge number of young scholars and experienced experts, everyone, and thanks and best wishes to the Department of Music of Hyderabad University.
I would now like to call upon Ms. Divyasri, the first participant for this session. Divyasri?
Namaskaram and a very good afternoon to everybody. My name is Divyasri Pisupati and I'm currently pursuing MA in Music from Hyderabad. Today, I'd like to reframe how we think about one of Carnatic music's most fundamental forms, which is the Varnam. Every Carnatic music student learns the Varnam at some or the other point in life. It is compulsory, universal, and widely practiced. Yet, there is a paradox that the one skill we want students to develop, which is the Manōdharma, the capacity for improvisation, is rarely and explicitly connected to the Varnam practice. Improvisation is treated as something that emerges later, intuitively and almost magically. But this paper challenges that assumption. And we argue that the Varnam is not a preparatory warm-up, but it is a foundational framework through which the improvisational thinking is systematically and gradually developed. But what is Manōdharma? Carnatic music has 2 streams, the Kalpita Sangeetam, which has fixed composed works like Kritis, Tilana, etc. And then there's Manōdharma Sangeetam, which includes Raga Lapana, Tanam, Neraval, Kalpana Swaram, etc. And as Sambamurthy rightly described it, Manōdharma Sangeetam is the on-the-spot creation. But here's the key insight. Manōdharma is not arbitrary. It operates within a strict grammatical framework of Raga Lakshana. And that grammar must be internalized before it can be improvised upon. But the question is, how does that internalization happen? The Varnam has a carefully designed structure: Pallavi, Anupallavi, Muktai Swarams, Charanam, and progressive Chitta Swarams. Each section contributes to a gradual unfolding from the foundational phrase identity to complex and rhythmic complexity. Crucially, the Varnam is practiced at multiple speeds in segmented units with repetition and variation. And this isn't merely technical drilling, but it is how a raga grammar moves from the mind into the body. Now let me show you how the Varnam encodes each dimension of improvisation. First, Akshiptika. It's the introductory or the seed phrase for an alapana. I've taken an example of the Sahana Varnam here. The opening phrase of the Varnam goes like pa ma ga ma ri ri ga ri sa, which can be directly taken as an alapana opening, like ta da ra na ra na. And next comes Tanam. The syllabic patterns of the Tanavarnam mirror the Tanam articulation. The Mohanavarnam, for example, the Mohanavarnam phrase ga ga ri sa sa ri ri ga ga ri ri sa ri ga ri sa ri ga 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 ri sa ri maps naturally onto the ta anam syllables like ta ga num ta ta num da num da ga num. And this is not just a coincidence, but it is embedded pedagogy. Talking about Neraval is the Charanam Sahityam lines that have taken from the Sahana Varnam again, which provide natural material for the Neraval, which is the melodic lyrical improvisation over a repeated line. And then the Chittaswarams, which are a miniature model of the Kalpanaswaram itself. These are structured, progressively complex, and resolved on a definite Grahaswaram. The Varnam doesn't just prepare you for improvisation, but it itself is an improvisation in embryonic form. This study also proposes a 7-stage model for how Manōdharma develops through Varnam practice. It begins with repetition and basic familiarity of the notes, then moves through internalization and recognition of the patterns, and then onto the controlled variation and expansion of the phrases, and ultimately towards the integration and expansion of creative and then constitutes to mature improvisation. This model demonstrates that Manōdharma is not just an advanced separate skill, but it is a cumulative process, and it begins on day one of Varnam practice, whether or not the teacher explicitly names it. My methodology is practice-based and qualitative, informed by musical analysis of Adi, Ata, and different Tala Varnams, observation of Guru Sishya pedagogy, and reflective practitioner insight. This particularly matters because Carnatic music knowledge lives in the body and not just in a notebook. Gamaka execution, phrase contour, laya sensitivity. These are all stored in muscle memory through oral transmission and sustained practice. So the Varnam is the primary vehicle for this embodied archive. And coming to my key findings, my findings confirm that the pedagogical gap has been identified where Varnams are taught for accuracy and not for creative potential. By reframing them as improvisational frameworks, we open the possibility of a pedagogy that explicitly cultivates Manōdharma from the earliest stages. This bridges traditional Guru Sishya practice with formal institutional curriculum, preserving the depth while also adapting to the contemporary contexts. To conclude, Varnam doesn't come before Manōdharma, and it is where Manōdharma is formed, is what I strongly believe in. And it is an intermediary space between fixed composition and what you call a spontaneous creation. It is an embodied site where musical knowledge is internalized, transformed, and ultimately expressed as an improvisation. And this study invites a re-evaluation of how we teach and how we theorize improvisation in the Carnatic music tradition. Thank you.
So now I call upon Divyasri Babu.
Yes, ma'am.
Presentation.
So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Divyasri Babu. I'm a PhD scholar from the Center for the Study of Indian Diaspora, University of Hyderabad. Today, I'm going to present my paper, and it is titled The Walls That Sing, Acoustic Geographies and the Embodied Archive of Indenture. So I have not that much relation with music department. I am coming from a social science background, and my paper is talking about the sound, space, and identity within the Indian indentured labor is intersecting, and how vernacular architecture functions as a resonant archive of cultural survival. So when Indians were taken from India to the colonial plantations, they had a big journey. They were taken on the ship, and then they were housed on plantation barracks, and they are intermingling with sound. So I'm examining how this moves beyond textual and ritual framework, and to see these acoustic geographies as embodied practices that transformed colonial structures into a site of continuity and resistance. So we have plantation barracks, tin roofed dwellings, then temple, courtyards. All these were analyzed not merely as shelters, but as a sonic environment that absorbed, amplified, and circulated collective memory. So I have taken theories of Stephen Fell's epistemology and Henry Lefebvre's rhythm analysis, and the study argues that diasporic communities resignified architectural forms through embodied transmission, sustaining oral traditions, devotional recitations, and musical practices across generations. By situating these practices within the broader discourse of intangible cultural heritage, this paper highlights how resonance itself becomes a mode of survival, embedding identity in everyday rhythms rather than monumental structures. This interdisciplinary framework demonstrates that diasporic belonging was inscribed not only in text and rituals, but also in the material and acoustic properties of space, offering a new lens for understanding the cultural geographies of indenture. So we know that sound is ephemeral. It vanishes the moment it is produced. So, how does a community preserve its sonic epistemologies? That is, its way of knowing the world through sound when displaced to a hostile land. So, my paper proposes that the answer for this question lies within the built environment. The paper argues that the architectural history of the Indian diaspora is not just the history of the shelter, but a history of acoustic geographies. So the physical spaces of the indentured, from the cramped ship to the shared coolie lines or the plantation barracks, and eventually to the self-built kutyas, that's the shrines, served as resonance chambers. The laborers transformed their surroundings into space that echoed and preserved their cultural heritage. So I have combined diaspora theories, sound studies and architectural theory, and proposes a sonic theory of diaspora through my paper. I have analyzed it in three lenses. One is resonance as archive. That is, memory is carried not only in text and rituals, but also in the acoustic properties of space. Then architecture as medium. Built environment actively shape transmission, absorbing, reflecting, and amplifying sound, and then sound as continuity. Sonic practices re-territorialize colonial structures, sustaining identity through devotion, defiance, and everyday circulation. And through analyzing all these, I have proposed four theoretical typologies of diasporic architecture. I have analyzed barracks as filters of surveillance, tin roofs as sonic shelters, temples as resonant continuity, and courtyard as circulatory system. So all these, in order to understand this, I have taken case studies from four colonies. That is, one is Fiji, Trinidad, Mauritius, and South Africa. So I have taken the available architectural specimens and analyzed how how sound plays an important role in preserving the cultural heritage. So it's like a historical study from the very beginning, when the laborers from India were taken to these colonies on the ship. So there, this acoustic trauma started from their journey on the ship. So that confined space of the ship, then the sound of the Kalapani or the black waters, so that roaring sound of the sea, and all these sounds created a trauma in them, and they resisted it through singing songs, sitting together and singing songs, chanting Ramayana. All these were a medium for them to overcome this trauma. So I have analyzed all these, like from ship to the plantation barracks, and then how they used sonic resistance, how they use loud chanting in order to overcome these surveillance and discipline mechanism implemented by the British. So I have used these in order to prove architecture as a theoretical archive. So, in conclusion, this paper has argued that the diasporic soundscape is inseparable from the built environment. The barrack, the tin roofed line, the mud walled kutia, the stone mandir, and the domestic courtyard each show how different materials created different types of resonance. So, architecture becomes a living archive in which sound mediates continuity, resistance, and identity. In the endangered context, resonance was not incidental, it was central to survival. So, loudness, chant, and rhythm transformed colonial structures into spaces of devotion, defiance, and everyday transmission. So, this is an overall summary of my paper.
And I would now like to call upon the next participant, Dr. Raghavendra Badaseshi. Sir, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there, madam. Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, my name is Raghavendra Badaseshi. I work as an assistant professor in the Department of Performing Arts, Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, Puttaparthi. So I would like to request the organizers to play my pre-recorded video, which I had shared with them earlier.
Namrata, are you there?
Good morning, respected chair, distinguished scholars and fellow participants. My name is Raghavendra Badaseshi, and today I will be presenting my paper titled Transformation of Oral Musical Heritage into Digital Learning Environments, Opportunities, Livelihoods and Cultural Value. To begin with, Indian classical music traditions such as Hindustani and Carnatic music have historically been transmitted through oral practices. This system, widely known as the Guru Shishya Parampara, emphasizes learning through listening, imitation, and long-term personal guidance rather than written documentation. In this traditional model, knowledge is not simply taught, but it is observed. Students develop musical understanding through continuous exposure, repetition, and disciplined practice, often over many years. Concepts such as Raga and Tal are not learned as theoretical structures alone, but as lived musical experiences shaped by sound, emotion, and practice. This system is deeply relational. The bond between the Guru and the Shishya plays a central role in shaping not only musical skill, but also values, discipline, and artistic identity. However, this system also presents certain challenges, especially in making musical training accessible to a wider range of learners. Factors such as geographical location, time commitment, and socio-economic conditions can influence who is able to engage in long-term training. In recent decades, several socio-economic and technological changes have begun to reshape this landscape. Urbanization, changing career patterns, and the increasing need for flexible learning have influenced how musicians approach both learning and teaching. Most importantly, the rise of digital technology has introduced new possibilities for musical pedagogy. A major turning point occurred during the COVID-19 pandemic when musicians across the world shifted to digital platforms such as Zoom, Google Meet, etc. As in-person teaching became difficult, online teaching quickly emerged as the primary mode of instruction. What initially began as a temporary adjustment has now evolved into a widely accepted and continuing practice. Even after the pandemic, many musicians continue to use digital platforms alongside traditional methods. Today, students are no longer limited by geographical boundaries. A learner in a small town can study with a teacher in another city or even another country. This has opened new pathways for learning and has made musical education more flexible and inclusive. In addition, digital platforms allow for both real-time and recorded learning. Students can attend live classes and also revisit recorded lessons, enabling better understanding and self-paced practice. One of the most important outcomes of this transformation is the expansion of opportunities for the musicians. In earlier times, teaching was largely limited to local students, and income from music often depended on unpredictable performance opportunities. However, digital platforms have changed this significantly. Musicians can now conduct individual classes, group sessions, workshops, and master classes for students across the globe. They can also create recorded courses and subscription based learning models, allowing them to generate income beyond time bound teaching. As a result, many musicians experience improved financial stability and greater control over their professional lives. Digital teaching has enabled them to build sustainable careers while continuing their artistic practice. Another important dimension is cultural exchange. In the past, international exposure was limited and often mediated through institutions or cultural organizations. Today, digital platforms allow musicians to directly connect with global audiences and learners. Through regular online interactions, students gain not only technical knowledge but also insights into cultural and aesthetic contexts of the music. In this way, musicians become cultural connectors, contributing to global understanding and appreciation of Indian musical traditions. Alongside many advantages, digital learning also brings certain challenges. The absence of physical co-presence affects the embodied nature of musical training. Subtle aspects such as tonal nuisance, resonance, and synchronized performance are more difficult to convey through digital media. Technical issues such as audio latency make it difficult for teachers and students to perform together in real time, often requiring a turn-taking method of interaction. There is also possibility of fragmented learning where students access a large amount of content without sufficient depth or sustained practice. Oral traditions emphasize depth, embodiment, and long-term mentorship, while digital learning emphasizes accessibility, flexibility, and wider reach. Instead, a hybrid approach can be understood as the most effective way to view this transformation. In such a model, digital tools support and extend traditional learning rather than replacing it. Many musicians today combine online teaching with occasional in-person sessions, creating a balanced and sustainable form of pedagogy. To conclude, the transformation of oral musical heritage into digital learning environments represents not a break from tradition but an extension to it. Digital platforms have expanded access, improved livelihoods, and strengthened global cultural exchange. At the same time, the foundational principles of oral transmission continue to remain essential for meaningful musical learning. Understanding this evolving relationship between tradition and technology is important not only for music but also for broader discussions on cultural sustainability and creative economics. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, sir. Sorry to have missed the order from the scheduled participants. I now call upon uh, Mr. Sundar Das to make his presentation.
Today, I'll be presenting my topic on preservation of musicality in Kanyarkali. I'm Sundar Das T, research scholar at Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Kaladi. Kanyarkali is a traditional folk dance ritual from the Palakkad region of Kerala. It is usually performed during the Vishu Vela season in the months of April and May. This art form is mainly practiced by the Nayar community and is a unique combination of ritual, music, and dance with strong influences of martial traditions. What makes Kanyarkali distinctive is that it is not just a performance, but a community based ritual where music, rhythm, and movements are deeply interconnected. The origins of Kanyarkali are believed to be linked to the martial traditions of Palakkad. Some sources suggest that it may have been instituted during the period of Zamorin of Kozhikode. Initially, Kanyarkali was exclusive to the Nair community, but over time it has been adopted by other communities as well, showing its adaptability and cultural significance. The performance is typically conducted over 3 or 4 nights in a specially decorated pandal. There are two major events in Kanyarkali, which is like two different types. One is the Vatakali, which is a ritualistic circular dance involving synchronized movement and rhythm. The other one is Porata, which consists of dramatic folk enactments that often include storytelling and social themes. The entire performance is accompanied by traditional instruments such as the chenda, maddalam, chengila, and ilathalam. These instruments play a crucial role in maintaining rhythm and energy throughout the performance. Kanyarkali consists of different performance elements. In Vattakali, we see devotional hymns combined with rhythmic footwork performed in circular formation. Whereas in a porata, the focus shifts to dramatic and often satirical representation of social life. There are different types of porata. It can be Otta porata, which is a single performance, and then there is Irata porata, which is dual performance, or and then there is something called as a Kuta porata, which is a group performance. Costumes vary depending on the prototype and also depends on the region where it is being performed. In some places, the costumes are very simple and tribal in nature, while in others, they are elaborate and reflect royal or local traditions. One of the most important aspects of Kanyargali is how it is transmitted from one generation to the next. Training usually happens before the event through rehearsal and ritual practices. This ritual is known as Idakali. The learning process is mainly based on observation and imitation rather than written notation. This makes it an oral tradition. The Kaliyashan or master plays a key role in ensuring discipline, accuracy, and continuity of the tradition. The musical structure of Kanyarkali is primarily rhythm driven. The chenda and maddalam provide the rhythmic base, while vocal syllables known as vaitari help maintain unity among the performers. The melodies are usually based on simple ragas such as Devagandhari and Mohanam, and singing is done collectively. Another interesting feature is that the songs often combine Malayalam lyrics with the influences from Tamil music traditions. Now coming to the main focus, how musicality is preserved in Kanyarkali. First, oral transmission and collective memory plays a major role. Since there is no formal notation, knowledge is passed down through repeated practice. Here is a video that features our 90-plus-year-old Kalyashan singing live during the presentation of Kanyar Kali, simultaneously leading the performance and prompting fellow artists with the lyrics, serving as a vital example of oral transmission in practice. Second, repeated melodic and rhythmic patterns make it easier for a performance to memorize and retain the music. Third, modern methods like digital recordings, along with continued community participation, help support the preservation. All these methods together ensure that Kanyarkali continue as a living and evolving cultural tradition. So I would like to conclude with a few words, if there is time to conclude. The musicality of Kanyarkali is preserved not through written systems, but through oral learning, embodied practice, and strong community involvement. Guided by experienced masters and supported by collective participation, this tradition continues to survive and adapt across generations. Kanyarkali is therefore not just an art form, but a living cultural heritage of Kerala. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now call upon Dr. Akanksha Rastogi to go ahead with
Yes.
the presentation.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Respected chair, distinguished scholars, and fellow participants. My name is Dr. Akanksha Rastogi, Assistant Professor, Music Vocal, Sahu Ramsarup, Mahila Mahavidyalaya, Bareilly. Today I am presenting my paper titled Embodied Learning and Epistemic Formation in Hindustani Classical Music, an Analytical Study of Guru-Shishya Pedagogy. This paper explores a central question: how is knowledge embodied, transmitted, and transformed within Guru Shishya Parampara? Hindustani classical music is not merely an art form, it is a living epistemology, a system of knowing grounded in experience, discipline, and relational learning. Unlike modern education systems that merely depends on text, notations, and explicit instruction, this tradition transmits knowledge through listening, imitation, and sustained practice that is called riyaz. At the heart of this system lies the Guru Shishya Parampara, or relationship, not a classroom model, but a deeply immersive and transformative bond. Here, knowledge is not taught in the conventional sense, it is absorbed, internalized, and embodied. As Michael Polanyi reminds us, we know more than we can tell. This perfectly captures the nature of musical knowledge in this tradition: tacit, experiential, and beyond verbal articulation. A key argument of this paper is that the body itself becomes the site of knowledge through voice cultivation, breath control, gestures, and deep attentive listening. The student doesn't simply understand music, they become musical. Learning a rag, for instance, is not about memorizing notes. It is about entering in the emotional world, its movement, its identity, what we call rag bhav. This knowledge cannot be written, it must be felt. It must be felt. The discipline of riyaz transforms this process. Through continuous repetition, sound moves from the external world into the body. Over time, the musicians no longer thinks. Yeah, this is true. Over time, the musicians does not think. They live music. The music flows through their bodies. As Ustad Amir Khan beautifully said, Riyaz is meditation of through soul. Riyaz is meditation through soul, in Indian context particularly. Another powerful dimension is improvisation. Here, knowledge becomes action. The musician creates in the movement, balance, tradition, and innovation. This is not spontaneity without structure, it is embodied intelligence in motion. Importantly, this study also highlights how embodied knowledge transcends the social boundaries. Women artists such as Kesarbai Kerkar, Gangubai Hangal, and Kishori Amonkar redefined both pedagogy and performance, challenging gender norms and reshaping the epistemic landscape of Hindustani music. Their journeys remind us that knowledge is shaped not only by pedagogy but also by lived experience and cultural negotiation. From a theoretical perspective, this paper engages with embodied cognition, ethnomusicology, Indian aesthetic through rag rus theory. It proposes that Hindustani classical music offers an integrated model of knowledge where learning is experiential. I'm repeating, learning is experiential, knowledge is embodied, transmission is relational, and practice is central to knowing. Now, I want to conclude this. Hindustani classical music challenges us to rethink what knowledge means. It tells us that knowledge is not only something we acquire, it is something we cultivate and inhabit. In a world increasingly driven by information, this tradition reminds us of the deeper truth that the most profound knowledge is not written in text. I'm sorry. It's not written in text. It is carried in the body, shaped through practice, and realized through experience. Thank you.
I now invite Ms. Sirisha Devulapalli to go ahead with her presentation.
Namaskaram. Today I am going to present my paper on Tyagaraja tradition, lineage, transmission of knowledge. Lineage and transmission of knowledge. As human history is studied in two parts, BC and AD, Carnatic music history can be studied under three periods: the pre-Trinity period, the Trinity period, and the post-Trinity period. The 18th century is regarded as the golden era of South Indian classical music because of the monumental contributions of the Trinity, Tyagaraja, Muthuswami Dikshita, and Syamasastri. The evolution of the Kriti format started during the Bhakti movement and gradually progressed from Sankirtana to Kriti, reaching its maturity during the Tyagaraja period. According to the preface of Kallur Veerabhadra Sastri's book, Tyagaraja was the one who established the structured formats of Pallavi, Anupallavi, and Charanam. Drawing on the Guru Sishya Parampara in Carnatic music, the study highlights how voice culture and improvisational practices are cultivated through prolonged physical co-presence between the teacher and disciple. Guru Sishya Parampara. The term Guru holds profound significance. A Guru is one who dispels the darkness of ignorance and bestows the divine light of true knowledge. Guru leka etuvanti guniki teliyaka podu. In the Ragam Gauri Manohari, composed Tyagaraja, the Raga Gauri Manohari, in this Kriti, Tyagaraja beautifully conveys the greatness of the Guru and emphasizes that true knowledge cannot be attained without the Guru's grace. Among the disciples of Saint Tyagaraja, the notable and prominent composer musicians, that is Vagyayakaras, include Valajapet Venkataramana Bhagavatar, Manambuchavadi Venkat Subbaiyer, Veena Kuppaiyer, Subbaraya Sastri, and Valajapeta Krishna Swami Bhagavatar. Broadly, Tyagaraja's lineage is widely divided into three streams. The pedagogical lineage stemming from Saint Tyagaraja is notably preserved through Manambuchavadi Venkat Subbaiya. One of his direct disciples, Subbaiya trained Susarla Dakshinamurti, who further transmitted Tyagaraja's Bani to Parupalli Ramakrishna Pantulu. This lineage reached its modern culmination in Dr. Mangalampalli Balamurali Krishna, whose scholarship, creativity, and performance practice brought renewed visibility and prestige to the Tyagaraja tradition. Sishya Parampara's second stream of the same lineage, from Tyagaraja's direct disciple Manambuchavadi Venkat Subbaiya, emerged another distinguished stream of musical transmission. In this lineage, Subbaiya trained Patna-Subramanyam. The disciple is believed to have studied the complete repertoire and style of Tyagaraja. Patna-Subramanyam in turn mentored Ramnathpuram Puchi Srinivasa Iyengar, Mysuru Vasudevacharya, etc., who carried forward this tradition with exceptional depth, artistry, and pedagogical clarity. Tyagaraja Bani is one of the most influential and enduring traditions in Carnatic music, shaping both performance and pedagogy. Core features of Tyagaraja Bani: primacy of Bhakti. Sangeeta Jnanamu Bhakti Vina Sanmargamu Galade Manasa. In the Divyasri Raga composition, Tyagaraja beautifully conveys that Bhakti is the essence of the true musical knowledge. Sahitya Sangeeta alignment, Laksha Lakshana Samanvayam, perfect balance between lyrics and melody. And Sangati development, Tyagaraja popularized systematic Sangati also. Each repetition of a line evolves musically while retaining lyrical integrity. Musical transmission in Carnatic music extends beyond the teaching of compositions and melodic structures. It encompasses the experiential understanding of nada, sound, as a holistic phenomenon involving the body and mind. Within the Guru Sishya tradition, the teacher imports not only the structure of swaras but also the subtle process of sound production. In this context, Tyagaraja in his Kriti, So Villu Sapta Swara Sundarula Bhajupave Manasa. In the Raga Jaganmohini, through this composition, Tyagaraja described 7 musical notes, Saptaswaras, as divine deities, Saptaswara Devatas. In the Anupallavi of the same Kriti, Tyagaraja describes the origin of sound, refers to the origin of nada, Nabhi ಹೃತ್ಕಂಠರಸನ ನಾಸಾದೂಲ ಎಂದು Nabi Hritkanta Rasana Sadula. This highlights that sound emerges from various physiological centers, culminating in and refined musical expression. Thus, the spiritual dimensions of Nada are transmitted experientially Guru to Sishya. Conclusion. From the era of Tyagaraja to the modern age, musical transmission in Carnatic music has evolved in form but not in essence. While technology pedagogical methods have expanded its reach, the core foundation of Guru Sishya Parampara, Nada and Bhakti continues to sustain and shape the tradition. From the period of Tyagaraja to the modern era, numerous eminent composers, musicians have walked in his footsteps. For instance, Tyagaraja composed the Kriti Varagalaya Nyulutamanochu in the Ragam Chenchukamboji. Following this tradition, Balasubrahmanyam popularized the Ragam Kadanakutugalam and composed Raghuvansa Sudhambudhi Chandrasri. In the same lineage, his disciple Puchi Srinivasa Iyengar introduced the Raga Suraranjani into prominence and composed Raghunathanan Udayamogani. Sri Arekkudi Ramanujaya Iyengar, one of the foremost disciples of Puchi Srinivasa Iyengar, is regarded as the pioneer of the modern Carnatic concert tradition. Thus, it can be observed that the tradition initiated by Tyagaraja continued to inspire subsequent composers and performers who in turn contributed new ragas and compositions, gaining recognition as eminent musicians. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sirisha. Now I invite Ms. Matangi K to make a presentation.
Good afternoon and a warm welcome to all the participants and the organizers and the fellows and my co-fellow speakers who are part of this online international conference organized by University of Hyderabad. I am Matangi, research scholar from the Department of Music, Central University of Tamil Nadu, Tiruvarur. The topic that I am going to present for the day is the concept of renewal of tradition through improvisational impact. This particular topic is being done in context to Bhagavata Mela Nataka, an age-old tradition which has been practiced since 16th century AD during the Nayaka, or originated during the Nayaka regime at the hamlets of Tanjavur district, Tamil Nadu. The concept of renewal of tradition through improvisational impact. Generalized form of improvisation is spontaneous rendition and dynamic in nature. Correspondence to renewal of tradition involves reinterpretation of cultural, social, and musical practices that strikes a balance between tradition and modernity. The concept of renewal of tradition is essential for sustainability in going forward. The objectives. The objectives of this tradition is to know about what all are the various improvisations manifested in the Bhagavata Mela tradition and how they play a vital role in sustainability in going forward. Next concept comes what all are the ways of renewing the tradition. The renewal of tradition comes through the musical aspects. Musical aspects are basically the backbone of the Bhagavata Mela, which enables the performers in exhibiting his or her expressions and emotions. Musical aspects comes through compositional framework. The Bhagavata Mela tradition, the compositions are basically pre-structured by prominent Bhagyakaras like Melatur Venkatrama Shastri, Bharata Panchanada Bhagavatar, and the list goes on. The music compositional framework comes through the raga concept, which is ragas which are basically followed are Carnatic based ragas like Kambodi, Bhairavi, Todi, Devagandhari, and Kammas. However, like how we exhibit in our Carnatic tradition, they won't be very elaborated, but in correspondence to the scene or the situation for this, it is being enacted accordingly. The ragas will be exhibited. The renewal of tradition pertaining to that, the raga framework can be even more elaborated through the Manōdharma aspect of the performance, like the brief alabana, Miraval rendition, and Kalpana Swaras. Let me show a brief example of the ragas, like in Leelavati Patra Pravesha of Salyamangalam tradition, where a brief alabana samaga samaga madana na 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 na. So like that, a brief alabana should be exhibited, showing the performer's innovativity, and followed by the composition. Then in between some Kalpana Swarams can be rendered. Similarly, Sangati variations, Bhagavata Mela, like in a Carnatic tradition. Similarly, the Bhagavata Mela also follows a Sangati variation, but with a varied tempos. Certain composition like a Patha Pravesha of Hiranyakashipu or the Leelavati, it will be in a slow tempo to show her entire characterization. Lalita Sashivadanam Patira, like that, a slow tempo, and based upon that the Sangadis keep varied, be based to show the full characterization of our Patra Pravesha. And the Kalpana Swaram will be shown. For that will be can be taken from the Swarajati concept, is the recent time improvisation shown. Another concept is based upon Abhinaya. Abhinaya can be shown within the instant expressions or the codified gesture in coordination to the performers performing the compositions. Next, revival through renewal. In perspect to Bhagavata Mela, the revival of through renewal tradition comes through renewing the lost dramas back. For instance, there are a couple of dramas like Rukmangada Charitram, Sita Kalyana Parinayam, which have been performed before, but due to practical concern, it has been stopped. So you can aim at reviving those dramas, but the challenge is to revive the documentations of those lost dramas. Next, renewal. Other than that, even in audience perspective, so renewal of tradition can be done through audience perspective, need of the audience. Where what can be the changes, like translating the script into the convenient language which is reachable to the audience. For instance, the Teparmanallur tradition, where the script is in Telugu, compositions are in Telugu, but the people of over there have translated into the Tamil language in order to reach the audience. So it is a one way of translating the script. Next is intergenerational transmission. It is nothing but passing on from one generation to another is called as intergenerational transmission, and the documentation for these transmitted works should be done. And finally, conclusion. To conclude with this, renewal of tradition is not an option but the survival going forward in passing on the tradition. Thank you.
Thank you, Matangi, for keeping up with the time. And now I call upon Divyasri.
Namaste to all the delegates and one and all present here. I'm Divyasri, a scholar pursuing MA Music. The topic I'll be presenting today is Raga delineation through musical compositions, a living oral heritage. If I just tell you the scale of a raga, do you really hear the raga? Not quite, right? Because in Carnatic music, a raga comes alive only through musical articulation. Raga delineation is the clear portrayal and description of a raga in detail. And this is where compositions act like a capsule. It condenses the entire essence of a raga. Forms like Varnams and Kritis play a key role here through its phrases and gamakas, and also serve as blueprints for Manōdharma aspects, giving us the experience of a raga. This section examines how prayogas, gamakas, and sancharas work together to reveal raga swarupa. For instance, both Bhairavi and Karharapriya employ the phrase rigamapa, however the treatment of gamaka differs. Certain prayogas serve as key identifiers for each raga. The phrase Rima Ma Sa Rima Pa stands out as a prominent phrase in Surati. In contrast, Kedar Gaule is effectively represented through phrases such as Maga Sa Rima Pa. Through composition, the role of Graha, Jiva, Nyasa Swaras, Alpatva Bahutva become crucial in shaping Raga Bhava. For instance, in the Kritis, Kamalam, the Gandhara functions as the Graha Swara, with the opening phrases Ga Ma Pa. These initial phrases highlight the importance of Gandhara as a viable starting point. If we take the Kriti Bhajana Parula in the Ragam Surati, the lines of the Charanam Pundarika Monojochi Rima Pani where the Jivaswaram Nishadam is highlighted significantly. Similarly, the concepts of Nyasaswaram, Alpatva and Bahutva, Dhatu Matu through compositions have been explained in detail in the article. The role of Varnams in establishing Raga identity can be clearly observed through their characteristic opening phrases. In the Saveri Varnam, the phrase Sari Gari Gari Ri Tadara La it serves as a useful starting point in Raga Alapana. In Carnatic music, practicing Varnams, especially Tana Varnams, is a fundamental step towards mastering Tana. Similarly, Varnams serve as a reference framework for Neraval singing and Kalpana Swaram, which has also been mentioned in the article in detail. Now let us analyze the Kritis. Every composition's Pallavi of Saint Tyagaraja is an Akshatika. For example, Nidhi Chala Sukama. The Sangatis found in the Pallavi and Anupallavi sections of Kritis provide valuable scope for the development of Neraval on the chosen line. For example, in the Kriti Chakkani Raja Margamo in Karharapya, the progressive development of Sangatis demonstrate how melodic expansion can be carried out effectively. Similarly, Kritis such as the Pancharatna Kritis serve as reference frameworks for Tanam singing, which can be illustrated in the Charanam of Pancharatna Kriti Jagadananda Karaka. Agaganum ta ta num ta ta num ta num ta ta num ta num ta num ta ta num ta num ta num ta num agaganum ta ta num num ta. Now let us look into the scope. The discussion gives special emphasis to Kritis, particularly those of the Trinities. The study is limited to selected Kritis and Varnams. It also includes a case study of 2 ragas. Finally, the study explores how these compositions connect directly to Manōdharma practices. The study follows a focused methodological approach. Varnams and Kritis are selected based on their relevance to raga delineation. The analysis focuses on characteristic prayogas, melodic movement across thais, and the contextual use of gamakas specific to each raga. The study incorporates that attentive listening, repeated learning, and performance contribute to internalization of the raga. The findings show that Varnams function as foundational frameworks for raga delineation, where characteristic phrases directly inform Akshaptika, shaping the very first evocation of a raga. Tana Varnams form the basis for mastering Tanam, while Ettugada Swaras naturally guide the structure and resolution of Kalpana Swaram. Kritis emerge as authoritative models for raga identity and expansion. Through their structured sections, Pallavi, Anupallavi, and Charanam, they enable a progressive exploration of the raga across thais. Elements such as Sangadis provide a framework for Neraval, while compositions like the Pancharatna Kritis offer a strong foundation for Tanam-oriented thinking. Together, these findings show that compositions are not just pieces to perform, but frameworks that guide both structure and creativity. Compositions are the primary medium through which a raga is understood and expressed. Compositions serve as a starting point for improvisation, guiding how a raga can be expanded creatively. The phrases and patterns we learn from compositions become the material we use during improvisation. Compositions ensure that raga knowledge is passed down across generations through performance and oral tradition. I'd like to thank Hyderabad Central University for giving me this wonderful opportunity to present my paper. I also extend my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Vyzarsu Balasubrahmanyam sir for his guidance and support. Thank you.
Thank you, Nitya. I now call upon Ms. Akilla Swati Ramalakshmi.
Yes, ma'am, I'm available.
Yeah.
You can see my presentation.
Yes.
Namaste all. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Akalla Swati Ramalakshmi, pursuing MA Music from Sri Padmavati Mahila Viswavidyalaya. I would like to take this opportunity for giving me to present the paper today. Today, I'll be presenting my research on Guru Sishya Parampara as an embodied pedagogy, particularly in the context of the Carnatic music. This study looks at how music knowledge is not just taught but deeply experienced and internalized through the body. The research begins with a simple, profound question on how are subtle, tangible aspects of music like raga, bhava, and intuition, or improvisational creativity are passed on across generations, especially when they are not fully written or codified. In today's world, when learning is increasingly institutionalized and digitalized, this question becomes even more relevant. So, this study attempts to understand three things: the philosophical roots of the tradition, the embodied techniques through which the learning happens, and finally, how the system adapts to modern learning environments. At the heart of this inquiry, the idea is that the body itself becomes the site of the knowledge. The conceptual foundation, mainly in the Bharatiya knowledge tradition, knowledge is not seen as something that could be simply transformed from one person to another. Instead, it is something that is awakened within the student. So, we often speak about the Shastra and the Anubhava. Shastra gives us, structure, the grammar of the music, while Anubhava brings the structure to the life experience. At least this is how what we have seen since the, decades of Indian knowledge transmission system. So, additionally, sound itself is understood. Whatever we are singing, finally, it is about the reproducing the sound. So, the sound itself is understood at the multiple levels, like Vaikhari, Madhyama, Paschati, and Para. This is the framework that is coming from our Vedas. Okay, like from the beginning to audible and moving towards a subtle and internal, even transitory dimension. So that is how it is audible listen. So we listen and then we try to understand it, articulate it mentally, then we try to visualize it, and then we try to understand the source and probably say it. So here the bio archive is nothing but the continuous proximity which lets the guru monitor the posture, breathe, and the bhava in the real time. So that is how the Guru Sishya Parampara has been living since over the decades. So which means that the body itself has become a living archive that carries Bani or the notation across the generation. So what is the methodology here? We tried to be more of a practice-based research approach. I tried involves close observation of the teaching and learning processes, the documentation of the physical and physiological cues, also my own engagement as a small-time practitioner within the tradition. So the study combines the participant observation, somatic mapping, and the analysis of the of how the transmission of the knowledge is happening through the multiple media in person as well as the digital. So here the important aspect here is subjective experience, which we call it as anubhava, is treated also as a valid knowledge, not just the recorded one. So it is also treated as a recorded one. So the research is not just analytical, but also deeply experimental, experiential, and the reflective. So I'll quickly go to the micro gesture. I tried my, this thing was limited to the Kalyani Raga, the Varnam. So one of the most significant findings in this, the much of the teaching happens through very subtle physical cues. So when the physically guru is sitting over there are a lot of micro gestures that would be happening. The slight oscillation that is being given, it's also transmitted through the small gestures, either by hands or either by the body posture, etc. So a circular movement of a hand may indicate the oscillation of the note, or similarly a flick of the wrist can signal emphasis on the stress in the face. So what is important here is the student does not simply imitate the sound, but they begin to embody the movement and energy of the music. In this way, raga is the sequence of the notes are not just taught, but the deeply physical and spatial experience it becomes. So the other aspect here is the silence and the non-verbal communication. In many cases, the guru doesn't connect, does not correct really the student using the verbal explanation, which is pauses basically. So here, what I try to do is I try to bring upon one of the discussion which speaks about the annamaya, the panchakosha of the body, annamaya, pranamaya, manomaya and vijnanamaya and anandamaya. Basically, from the sitting posture to synchronizing with guru, absorbing the raga bhava, and then transitioning to manodharma, where actually your vijnanamaya get flourished, and then finally ultimate state of the rasa we reach, which is the anandamaya. So this is the kind of experience or anubhava we were having at the as part of the guru shishya parampara when we are doing the things. So so what will happen is when we are compare this with the institutional models, probably there is interesting contrast emerges. The traditional parampara system knowledge is internal and embodied, whereas continuously refined through interaction. So to conclude this, what I try to do is the Guru-Shishya relationship emerges not as a simply teaching method, but as an epistemology of awakening that keeps Carnatic music living, relational, and deeply human, including the limbic regulation as well as the neural coupling. So it ensures the Carnatic music continues to remain in a living, evolving tradition. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Swati. The next participant is Dr. Swagata Bhattacharya.
Namaste, ma'am. Warm greetings to all. I would request you to kindly play my video. Namaste, all. I am Dr. Swagata Bhattacharya from Department of Music, Central University of Tamil Nadu. The title of my paper is Shared Enjoyment as Embodied Interaction in Live Music Performance. To begin with, let me give a short overview of the topic. The shared enjoyment between the musician on stage and audience during a live musical performance is cognitive experience. So this paper explores the embodied perspectives on shared enjoyment in live music, and the aim of this study is to explain why live performances differ from recorded music. The study develops a conceptual feedback model, and this model is supported by familiar examples and observations from live performance context. Now, what is embodied cognition? From the existing literature, the study first tries to understand the concept of embodied cognition. So, embodied cognition explains how understanding arises from bodily experience, sensory memory, and metaphor. Cognition is formed by perception, action, and prior experiences with gestures, which aids in thinking, communication, and learning. In music, movement and interaction enhance memory and emotional engagement. Research highlights stronger responses in live performances and performer-audience interdependence. However, there are gaps, and these gaps remain in our understanding of synchronized audience movements. So, in studies, the embodied cognition is only understood as an internal process. So in methodology, the study employs a qualitative approach. It is a concept-driven study that reviews literature on embodied cognition, music, and interaction. So systematic review is done to understand the concept of embodied cognition, and again theoretical foundation based on systematic review on the studies on live versus recorded music, bodily engagement, and social interaction is also done. So finally, the study develops a performer audience feedback loop model. In the conclusion, the study suggests that the model to be empirically validated in future research. So here is the feedback loop model. It is the embodied enjoyment loop. So let me give you the rationale behind this model. So this present study suggests that the need to associate is the key. Associate with the performer from the audience's side, and again to associate with the audience's enjoyment from the performer's side. So when the performer is enjoying their own performance, the audience feels it and they want to be part of it. On the other hand, every new gesture attempt to artistic brilliance of the performer is waiting for approval or validation from the audience. It is like the artist is seeking an answer to the silent question that have I reached to your perception. Your means audience. So have I successfully reached to your perception. So the reaction or response of the audience fulfills it. How? And this does not mean that performance stops if the audience gives negative responses or they don't validate it. Performance continues, but the happy responses, happy feedback gestures, these are reciprocated as mirrored movement, and it brings enjoyment to both sides, and this creates a feedback loop. Now let me explain the model a bit. Here the performer is the initiator of the embodied expression through performance. Then the audience receives it. The audience receives the expression and takes it to the perception and gives an embodied response to the artist. Then the mutual attunement is set through the feedback system. Then the performer connects with the environment and mood of the audience through cognitive understanding and adapts to the environment. So the connection becomes reciprocal here. And since it is reciprocal, then it gets amplified by the shared enjoyment. And this is how the engagement is also reinforced. And this total process creates a feedback loop and it continues. So the model reframes live music as an embodied interaction where performers and audience co-create. So they co-create meaning and enjoyment through real-time feedback, emotional exchange, and social interaction. So which is very unlikely with the recorded music, because that mutual responsiveness is missing in recorded music. But in live music, that mutual responsiveness, collective regulation of enjoyment, and share emotional experiences are there. So that embodied presence, gestures, these actually create engagement and mutual understanding. So in the paper, the study suggests that in future research, the observational methods, motion analysis, and interviews can be done to understand more on these interaction systems. So the details of elements of feedback like eye contact, timing, energy, these things are explained in the final paper. With this, I would like to conclude here. I'm thankful to the organizers, moderators, guests, and my fellow researchers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Dr. Ritubaban, you there? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, hello, ma'am. I have recorded one video and sent.
Okay, it's playing. Thank you.
I will say something after that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think sound is not coming.
Namrata, can you please check?
In the imitation of nature, ancient Indian musicology, origins lie in the forest, not technical instrument. Musicians mimic natural sounds, weather patterns, and seasonal matters, source, notes, believed to be derived from the imitation of birds and animals by the human voice. Defining biomusicology, the study of musicality as a fundamental cross-cultural biological trait. Ancient treatise and origin of source. The three pillars of bioacoustic theory in India. Brihadasi, 16th to 8th century by Muni Matanga, Naradiya Siksha and Sangit Ratnakar, Sarangadevs. These are masterpieces which remains the definitive authority, solidify the bioacoustic origin of the Indian musical scales. Global biomusicology, evolutionary origins. Percussion. Great apes, drumming is a homogeneous trait during back 7 to 8 million years to our last common ancestors. Antiphonal singing, duetting birds like wrens exhibit interlocking timing, providing biological blueprint in human choruses. Multimodal dance, rhythmic display in chimpanzees and deer suggests dance is a fundamental cross-species musical trait. Dynamic curves, the Memem rocket crescendo in symphonies mirrors a accelerando of a chimpanzee's panthood. Methodology, field observation and acoustic capture, primary and secondary data strategy, constant readiness. Beyond sanctuaries, high quality data is not limited to exotic locations. Observation occurs in diverse habitat, including urban gardens, towns, and office landscape. Opportunities of recording. Since avian behavior cannot be controlled or staged in research, maintain a state of constant field readiness to capture spontaneous vocalization. Case studies. In my research, I have taken almost 300 animal and bird sounds for sample. In this slide, I am showing the sound of black kite. The black kite, this is very common bird all over India. It has a very shrill, almost musical sound. That I noticed that if we slide from E note to F sharp note, then with tremolo, then it is almost the same as the black kite sound. And sometimes it C sharp, E, F, F sharp, G sharp in the 440 standard tuning. The universal medium of sound. This is my conclusion. Nature as the prototype, the advanced ornamentation, dynamic shift, and rhythmic technique of modern music find their blueprint in the natural world. Beyond anthropocentrism, means beyond humanism, we must shift away from the view that musicality is strictly human. It is an embodied transmission shared across diverse living beings. The imitative limb. If music is fundamentally an art of imitation, then the natural world serves as the primary source of all human compositional structure. Thank you.
I want to add something to this, ma'am. Okay.
Please go ahead. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. See, this is the voice of quail. And this is in the month of April, we celebrate Bihu in Assam. These are the notes Gasa Ga. If we add some rhythm with this, we can get this kind of music. This is the very basic tune of Assamese Bihu song. And we can somehow say that some creative mind may have added rhythm to this the sound of Asian coil, police or we call it. And thank you, ma'am. This is my presentation.
Thank you so much. That was interesting. Now I request Professor Premalata to give her review And before that, I acknowledge the presence of Professor Chad Stavro, who is also one of our distinguished speakers during this 3-day conference. Welcome, sir. And now I request Dr. Premlata, Professor Premlata, to give her review.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, it was a very, very fresh morning first session. It was really very enchanting to see the varied aspects of music research. For this, the whole music world is indebted to the team from the Hyderabad University who has organized this kind of a seminar. So with the theme of the conference being the transition of knowledge and also the embodiment of all this parampara and the tradition, we had a lot of papers of which many were both interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. So on the whole, I would say there were around 11 presentations, if I'm right, exactly. Yeah, all the 11 presentations, they had kept up the time also, and a very crisp and very good presentations by all the researchers, where we had a mixture of topics like Divyasri speaking on how the Manōdharma aspects are met with from learning from the Varnam. And also I would say Nityasri speaking about the Raga Swarupa and musical composition. Where again she was speaking about how the various aspects of music performance, the Kalpita part can be also, and also Manōdharma, all these aspects can be taken from the music composition. So their research had been in that area. And we had very good interdisciplinary topics on the acoustical aspects by Biba, the diaspora, and then the geographical aspects also, and Swati Ramalakshmi, and there were some papers which was entirely meant for the Guru Shishya Parampara or the teaching, the knowledge transmission. So I think many of the papers had also focused on this, like Akanksha, where she said about how this transmission of knowledge, I think she spoke with the Hindustani background, where we had Swati Ramalakshmi. She had done a very good experimental research also of how this body language is required in the transmission of knowledge. And Swagata speaking about what is the enjoyment and the aesthetic appeal which you get on listening to a live performance versus the recorded one. So this is also very important and key feature of music performance. And again, it's the transformation and transmission. So what is transmitted from the guru to the shishya, the performer to the audience, or whatever you call from A to B. So all these aspects are really very, very important. And we had a couple of paper presentations on the allied art forms, like the folk dance. It was really very nice. I wish to go deep into Sundar this presentation from the Kamayar colleagues from the Palakkad area. Because this kind of topics will have to bring out the real indigenous art forms of our nation, and also Matangi's presentation on the Bhagavata Melanatakam. In this context, I would like to tell there was a question by one of our audience. Is it similar to the Harikatha from Lakshmi? It is not Harikatha. See, these are all the allied art forms where there will be many components like the story, the music, the enactment also, maybe, and the instrumental playing. On the stage, if these are all together, which will take the lead and what is the purpose of it? In these manners, they all differ slightly. So they are all allied art forms where music is also part of such a theatre or stage performance. So Bhagavata Melanatakam is something which is peculiar and inherent of the South Tamil Nadu. And Sirisha's presentation with illustrations also on the transmission of knowledge and the Tyagaraja lineage through his composition. And I'm not going to give detailed abstract of each one of your papers. I just made some notes in case, like what a teacher does when in the classroom, we just note it down to tell them whenever it is possible. But in this kind of an online session, I would rather feel the participants need to address the questions and the queries from. I think you are more than 100 almost. At one point of time, I saw there were 104 or 106 participants. Now it is 91 or 92. So what I would prefer is, definitely we may not have time to interact or note down the questions and ask each one of them at the end of every session. Instead, if the organizers can form a forum or some place where the questions can be discussed, so this would definitely help Indian research, music research. So that will be really good. And I was so thrilled about the last one, Ritu Pavan, the sounds of the swaras and the relation to the musical notes. Actually, some research has also been done earlier. I had heard one such in Kolkata. I think it was organized by Dr. Sanjay ji. At that time, where the scholar from abroad, he decoded the music of the birds, what it was being rendered during a particular season. Because birds, they all understand the season, what is the season, what should be. And we can't just with our own knowledge of Adhara Shajja, P or D sharp or whatever you call like F, G and all, then you start notating these things may not work out for their sounds of animals and the birds. But still you can, it is something like what we had in the early centuries. Like the music movement or the melodic movement which you listen, the sound movement which is created by these birds and animals would definitely have some, it is not just a noise or a just combination of notes. They all have a rhythm also within them. So now a research in this area, it's a very good like biomusicology. I think for the first time I'm listening to that. So there could be many other areas. Now universities, UGC under NEP and all these places, we all keep about take music to all other disciplines, make it as a multidisciplinary. So it should not be a mere research, just comparing one and two. So when such kind of a research with some substantial experiments, investigations and findings and observations, please don't come to hasty conclusions, but all these observations can be definitely very helpful. And now listening to this, many of you would be having a lot of your own comments and your observations on many of these papers. 11 papers for one session. On the whole, for the 2 or 3 days, you may be having around at least 40 to 50 presentations. So all this, if there is a forum or a place where you can all discuss with each one of you. We have a PA research scholars group only for this purpose. But I very rarely see any discussion on topics also. No? There's only question and answer, you are getting some queries answered. But of course, anything is, let us take it as a starting point. On the whole, I would say a very good attempt by all the researchers, and the presentation models and the templates were also good. So all the best to all the researchers. Please come up with some healthy research following all publication and research ethics. And this will definitely open up a lot of avenues. We have to make, see when the editors of journals like Ravi Sharma sir, they are all here. They will be very much happy to invite these kind of papers for their journals also. So this would open up a lot of opportunities for the benefit of music research. So I take this opportunity first to congratulate all the research scholars who had already done or who are in the process of completing their research in any way, who had made some efforts and who had taken this particular conference as a serious one, and they have done some good job. So congratulations to you, and the best wishes to the organizers also and the university. And my pranams to the great scholars who are here. They have to come and they will also be sharing their views. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. And the question answer sessions will definitely be opened up in a forum where it will be definitely be helpful to many of them. So thank you, Dr. Pavani and Dr. Peck.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your very valuable, insightful review on all the presenters' perspectives. We are very happy and thankful for you to join us and share your views on this. As a concluding note for this first session, I thank you all for your engaging participation in the first session. While I convey my sincere thanks to all the distinguished speakers for their valuable insights and for all the distinguished guests who joined us in this first session.